Okay, welcome to biological explanations of aggression. There are two of these, genetic, and this one, neural and hormonal mechanisms in aggression. So make a note of that. You need to know neural and hormonal mechanisms in aggression. Okay, the key terms in the specification, things you're going to need to understand and be able to answer questions of. Roles of, basically. The limbic system, so we're going to learn what that is. Serotonin and testosterone, and you may already have heard of serotonin, testosterone, definitely testosterone, and its idea of around aggression. We'll look in a bit more detail into that. Okay, I use arrows here. I mean, I haven't in this case, but just how do we get to aggression? So essentially, the argument is low levels of serotonin, okay, equals aggression. High levels of dopamine equals aggression. High levels of testosterone equals aggression. And then there's this extra one, low levels of cortisol, which it was in the old specification, it still exists, you could still talk about it, but it's definitely those first three, serotonin, dopamine, and testosterone, and what they say about aggression. Okay, first thing we need to know, limbic system. So what is it? Well, it's a network of structures deep in the brain, and I've reduced this down. Yeah, if you look up the limbic system, you could read for hours and hours and hours about it, but I've reduced it to what I think you're going to need to know, and then we'll look at the past questions and see whether we've got enough to answer the biggest question it can ask you. But it's a network of structures deep in the brain, and what I mean by deep is whenever you see one of those brains and you've got the cortex, and then there's bits going on and smaller bits inside, like the hippocampus, hypothalamus. That's the limbic system. Okay, so that small bit nearer the neck, nearer where the spine comes in, rather than on the external. Hypothalamus, hippocampus, thalamus, and the most important for aggression, amygdala. Okay, that's what's in them. Okay, the amygdala. It represents it responds and reacts to environmental challenges and threats that have been proven to be an important predictor of aggressive behaviour. So all of these things are something to get kind of in your thought process early on, exist right in the middle of our brain, which would say to anyone, evolutionarily, biologically, that they've been around the longest. They hold the key to the kind of inbuilt network structures, everything that's going on. They're so impacted in there. Our brains may have got bigger and our cortex may have got bigger, but they are in there and they've been around for a very, very long time, basically helping us to survive. Okay, and this is saying the amygdala responds and reacts to environmental challenges and threats. Okay, so it's very quick, and it's going to tell it's fight or flight. How are we going to do it? How are we going to respond? Comes in this real deep structure in our brains. Okay, the evidence for the limbic system. Katrina Gospic et al. 2001, the ultimatum game. Okay, and it is worth looking this up. It's an interesting game. I'll try and explain it as much as I can. But if you don't understand it, I'd 100% advise you to quickly go and find it and look up the ins and outs. You have a proposer and a responder. Okay, and they can choose to share money or not. So I'll have £100,000 and I will say to you, right, I'll give you £20,000. Okay, if you agree, okay, so the proposer makes the deal. If you agree, then that's what happens. Okay, I get 80,000, you get 20,000. But if you reject, nobody gets anything. So you may think, if I was to make an even sneakier one and go, I'll take 99,000 and you take 1,000. You might turn around and go, you know what, that's annoying me that you've done that. I'm going to say no, and no one's going to get anything. Okay. So they used MRIs. When researchers rejected an unfair proposal, the limbic system was heightened. So it's saying that when we've had that feeling of no, I'm going to reject it, this limbic system, this part deep in our brain, was heightened. It all lit up. Benzodiazepine reduces the arousal in the autonomic nervous system. When this was taken before the game, so we've actually taken a drug, benzodiazepine, you may have heard of it. When I take one of those drugs that reduces, so basically makes it a bit sleepy, my limbic system, my autonomic nervous system, makes it a bit sleepy, not working as fast, okay, with half the number of rejections, so it decreased the activity of the amygdala. So it's both showing that when we get aggressive and we reject and we feel an unfair proposal, this part of our brain lights up, and also that we can control it via drugs, which is, if something is controllable via drugs, it definitely says it's a biological cause. Okay, when you look at the, if you said aggression was about a behavioural cause, so it's caused by parents and learning and all of that, then obviously you wouldn't give them a drug, you'd teach them about what correct behaviour is. So this is saying a drug also reduced the amount of problems. Okay, serotonin, AO1 still, thought to inhibit aggressive responses to emotional stimuli, just need to understand that. Low levels, so if there are low levels of it, obviously it's not going to inhibit as much, it's not going to stop aggressive acts, so low levels associated with increased impulsive behaviour, aggression and violent suicide. Manitow 1990, drugs which reduce serotonin increased measures of hostility and aggression in males, okay, but not females, and we'll come to that later on, so the gender imbalance in a lot of this work. So reduce serotonin, you increase aggression, and you just need to understand that link, and here we've got the idea that drugs did it. Bakunin 1994 compared serotonin of violent versus non-violent impulsive offenders. So literally went into a prison, took some blood, figured out the levels in saliva, got their levels of serotonin. Here's high levels of serotonin, here's low levels of serotonin, and found that those with the low levels of serotonin, okay, were aggressive and suffered sleep irregularities, and sleep patterns are linked massively to serotonin as well. So we found evidence within the violent offenders population as well, and that those which were more violent seem to also have this correlational link to a low level of serotonin. Okay, so testosterone, what does this do? AO1, let's just go through it. Thought to act in areas of the brain which control aggression from young adulthood onwards, and this idea of young adulthood, you guys will all know, testosterone, puberty, all of these things, and get heavily linked to aggression. Thought to be the primary biochemical influence on aggression, so a lot comes out of testosterone. We've got some studies here that are going to show you the link. They're all AO1, some other studies in AO3, but Dabbs et al. Salival testosterone, so swipe of the mouth finds levels of testosterone. Levels were able to differentiate between violent and non-violent crime. So again, testosterone, take the swabs of people and actually be able to predict, differentiate between who was violent in their crime and who was not violent. Higher testosterone, higher crime. Lower testosterone, non-violent crime. Lindemann et al. 1987, aggressive behaviour in drunk males positively correlated with testosterone levels. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Aggressive behaviour in drunk males. So you are a drunk male, you are aggressive. Let's take your testosterone levels. Oh look, you've got a high testosterone level as well. Yeah. Wagner et al. 1979. Castrated male mice showed decreased aggression, which then increased when given testosterone again. So castrated, you may know, is basically they chop their balls off, or, so they don't have that link to where testosterone is linked to. But decreased aggression, but increased when given testosterone again. So they would be injected to testosterone, and they would become aggressive again. Dolan 2001, positive correlation found in 60 male max security prisons. So again, those that are in max security, so the worst of the worst, the aggressive of the aggressive, whatever you want to say, also had high levels of testosterone. So lots of studies there showing a strong link to do with testosterone, high testosterone, high aggression. Okay, on to AO3. So quickly onto it. Findings on serotonin replicated in vervet monkeys. So they found it there. That's it. Okay, and that can lead, why we do that is when we talk about an animal study, we can then talk about extrapolation, definitely. Okay, and if you want a secondary part of an AO3 and another AO3, you can talk about the ethics of it as well. So that could be 3 paragraphs, maybe 2, maybe the findings and extrapolation linked together, then ethics if you want it. So that's 2 or 3 AO3 paragraphs for you there. Findings on serotonin also confirmed via studies on antidepressants. Berman et al. 2009. He did a placebo versus paroxin, which enhances serotonin. So if we increase serotonin, what would we expect to see? Well, an increase, I'd expect to see a decrease in serotonin, in aggression. Game-giving shocks to provoke. So it's one of these games that deliberately frustrates and provokes people. With drug, much less intensity and level. So what it's saying there is those which had higher serotonin were less likely to give out high shocks, high intensity. However, Leonard, 2008, cautious that serotonin not just linked to aggression, also to impulsive behaviour, depression, overeating, alcohol abuse, and violent suicide. So we can't just look at serotonin in itself. It's the whole broader picture that serotonin is linked to lots and lots of things, as well as aggression. Okay, 03. Amygdala does not work in isolation. So much like the last point we made there in the previous slide, is that it's not just the amygdala. The control of aggression is more complex than just this one small part of the limbic system. Evidence from recent research shows that the orbital frontal cortex, so the large bit of the brain at the front, which is not in the limbic system, also has an effect. So we can see that as a predictor of whether you're going to be aggressive or not. So it's basically a reductionist argument that looking at the amygdala is a reductionist argument, that you can't just look at it in isolation. There's lots of other things that happen. It's an interaction between neurons, the amygdala, the cortex, and more. Evidence conflicting the role of testosterone. Studies showing positive correlations had small samples and self-report measures. Hopefully you understand that. If you don't, we'll talk about it in class. But a small sample means that a study lacks a bit more validity. Self-report has issues with how do we actually get this the measure of aggression. Studies mainly correlational. Okay, again, correlational. There's so many AO3s here. You're not going to need all of them. Just choose the ones that you're particularly happy with. You're going to need maybe 4 or 5 of these tops. But correlational, if you want to write that one out. So not possible to conclude that testosterone causes aggression. Maybe aggression causes testosterone. Also, testosterone not always associated with negative characteristics. So having high levels of testosterone is not a bad thing. You're going to be improved sporting abilities, improved spatial abilities. So the awareness is going to be a better driver, okay, if you have high testosterone. So it's not just negative about aggression. Clarification needed. This idea of aggression and dominance. So football's always one that comes up. You know, some of those central midfielders, Roy Keane in the past, Vieira, these people, that were they aggressive or were they dominant? Okay, and this issue relates to internal validity. If the research as studies may be measuring different things, making a comparison to results is difficult. So it's just saying, if we do look at dominance, if somebody is dominant and we're saying they're aggressive, then our whole study is internal validity is reduced. Okay, and we can talk about that more in class if we don't get it. Gender bias, I touched on it ever so slightly earlier, but as far as I can see, most, if not all, of the research has been done using males, both in animals and humans. Right? Whereas it's known that there are differences between the genders in androgens. So females are aggressive. So if testosterone is the reason why females are aggressive, how can testosterone be the prime example, the prime reason why? So so much of the research is gender bias, and you can discuss that, and cultural bias, as it's mostly in Western cultures. So gender bias, cultural bias, so many AO3s if you need them. Debates, the reductionist idea that physiologically reductionist is just to consider the role of biochemistry alone. Also, you need to consider genetic factors, brain structure. Phineas Cage, who you should look up if you've never heard of him, it's a very interesting and short story, who basically got brain damage, got a big bolt up through his head, and showed heightened levels of aggression. So that that didn't necessarily neurohormonal, that was more to do with a change in the brain. Also need to consider the contribution of environmental factors, situational quality, net temperature, noise, overcrowding, role of learning. The London riots are in the summer. The Los Angeles riots are in the summer. Lots of things cause aggression, and it can't be just a reductionist view of neurohormonal. Okay, application we'll look at in class. It's very useful. That's basically it. Read through that. You don't need too much of that, but just read through it on your own. Come to class ready to understand serotonin, dopamine, testosterone, their links, and have 4 to 6 of those 3 paragraphs that you're happy with. Lovely. Bye.